Hey everybody, and welcome to a new video. In this video, we're going to be talking about my weight loss journey. This is going to be an update video, not a before and after success story. I mean, I'm still in the middle of it, but this is going to be an update video on my process and how things are going and what I've learned so far and what I'm doing moving forward to get to where I'm at. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I used to be an athlete. I used to be somebody who was fit. I worked out a lot. I very much was somebody who you would consider like very in shape. And after I moved to Chicago, I had a couple injuries. I was not eating as well. I was working a retail job for a period of time, which made going to the gym less consistent for me. And over time, I slowly started to gain weight. It definitely was not an all at once thing. I slowly started to kind of fall out of shape. I would actually, even for a while, I kept the same weight, but the composition was slowly no longer as muscular. I was carrying more fat. And then before I knew it, I had already gained weight. And I didn't realize how much weight I had gained. And when the pandemic hit, then I ballooned. And I jumped all the way up to at my heaviest that I actually weighed myself. Who knows what the actual heaviest was, but from the moment I actually weighed myself was 219 pounds, which is just insane to me to think that I gained that much weight in that amount of time. And that weigh-in was probably in January of 2021. And that was like my first wake-up call of like, oh my God, I need to do something about this. And from that moment forward, I made more of an effort to work out, and I did. I was more diligent in working out, and I made that more of a consistent pattern for me. I was able to lose some weight, so I got down to like, let's say 215 or so, and I kind of plateaued a little bit. And when I got to 215, I realized, okay, I'm working out, I'm doing this stuff consistently, like why am I still not getting there? And then I started looking at my diet because I eat really healthy foods. So it's not like, I mean, not that I don't eat junk food sometimes too, but I mean, I cook meals at home and I'm always eating like really balanced. Like there's always a veggie, there's always a protein, and there's usually always some sort of side. Sometimes it's a potato, sometimes it's rice, some sort of like carby grain thing. I couldn't figure out like why am I not losing weight, or at least why am I not losing weight as rapidly as I think I should be? I then started to not buy certain snacks. I tried the restrictive diet, and I can't say that that works for me because it doesn't. I don't think restricting yourself is sustainable, and I really wanted to lose this weight in a way that was like realistic and sustainable. Like I want to look at what I'm doing right now as, yes, some aspect of it is temporary, meaning the caloric deficit is temporary. At a certain point, I want to get to the point where I'm at my goal weight and I eat maintenance calories. I don't want the composition of the food to be temporary. I want the composition of the food to be something that I can eat forever, right? And I love delicious meals. I love to cook. Mary loves to cook. We make amazing meals together. We love to make like risottos and stuff on the weekend and eat a nice steak. And there's a bunch of stuff that I'm not willing to sacrifice, right? So what is the key for me is to make sure that I eat a reasonable amount of food and keep the overall balance there. So for a while when I was eating and I cut out the snacks, I did lose a little weight and I got down to like 212 or so. And then I just was like, stuck there. I just could not get out of that range. I was stuck at 212. I was working out a lot. I wasn't snacking as much. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe my body has just the worst metabolism ever. And it really just like, it just doesn't want to lose weight. Now, obviously, scientifically, that's not how that works. If you're in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. It just is what it is. But I clearly was not in a caloric deficit. And part of the reason why I was not in a caloric deficit was because I wasn't tracking my food. I needed to recondition my body to realize what is an appropriate amount of food. I had been disorderly eating for so long that I did need to actually track it to start learning what certain things are, right? I had to learn how many calories different things are to know, like, okay, I've eaten enough. So at the moment, I actually still track my calories. But I will say that the tracking of the calories has been really important for me, but I also can understand how it can be very toxic for some people. So for some people, I do not recommend doing it. Once I started tracking the calories, which actually was only in like mid-December of last year, I started seeing major gains. All of a sudden, I went from 212 down to, at one point, I actually got to 205. But that was on the holiday break. And of course, from that moment forward, we were eating like holiday dinners and stuff with the family. So that went back up to like 207 or whatever. And I was sitting at about 207, 208, 206, kind of like in that range. I would fluctuate between then. Probably about a month where I kind of was like sitting there like, okay, I'm not really gaining or losing. And I understand that, you know, when you're changing your body composition, sometimes the actual poundage is not going to change that much because you might be adding muscle, and muscle's more dense than fat. And so as you gain that muscle, because per that density, it could be weighing more. It's possible that trade-off of losing the body fat but then gaining that muscle ends up offsetting itself. So you're not really seeing major gains one way or the other. And so one thing that I started researching was taking creatine. And creatine allows your muscles to store more water. I'm not a scientist here, okay? I'm going to give you the layman's terms, but it allows you to store more water in your muscles, which helps with recovery. It also helps them look better, to be honest. You get a little more pump out of it. And then it also helps with your endurance in the workout, so you can push yourself a little harder with the progressive overload, and you can get a better workout, build more muscle faster. However, it does come with a downside, and the downside is that with that extra water in your muscles means you're carrying extra water in your body that you normally are not. And so when I took that creatine, and about after the first week, I noticed the weight gain immediately. I went from 206, 207 to like 213. And I knew it was water weight, so I didn't stress about it because it's not like I suddenly gained 6 pounds of fat. You know, obviously it was the water weight. After taking the creatine, it's now been a little over a month for sure. I now am back to 206, 207. Like I fluctuate between 206 point something to 207 point something. So I now am effectively at the weight I was when I started the creatine. If you really think about it, if you subtract, let's be generous and say, even though I gained 6 pounds from taking the creatine, let's say I don't really carry 6 pounds on average of water weight from the creatine. Let's say it's more like 4 or 5. That means that I'm still now down to more of like 202 to 204-ish, somewhere in that range, depending on, the give or take of the water weight or whether I, took a shit that day, But it's really cool because I'm seeing the progress. So even though I had that temporary, in terms of the weight number setback from the creatine, the reality is that my body composition is continuing to change, and I am continuing to lose weight. And that's because I'm finally in a proper caloric deficit and I'm consistent with it. And I think it took me a while to figure out how I needed to do this, where I could not be obsessive, still eat what I want, because I still eat what I want. I'm trying to not like overly eat sweets. That's like one of my vices, is I love sweets. So I'm trying to not eat sweets and do all of those things that make it harder to stay in that deficit, but I still do eat them. Like I'm not depriving myself of foods I like. I'm still eating delicious meals. They're still full and complete. I'm just making sure that my portion is reasonable and keeps me in my deficit. And so for the last several weeks since I started tracking it, I pretty much averaged about 1,800, anywhere between 1,800 and 1,900. And I had a couple weeks that were like 1,600 something calories, like net calories. So maybe I would eat 2,300, but I would exercise like 400 or 500 or something out of it. So it's been interesting where when I have this accountability, I have the real numbers more or less. I mean, it's an estimation when you're using MyFitnessPal, but I have all of that, and it is making progress. And so I think when I look at like how my journey has gone, I first went from like, oh my God, I need to do something about it, to then, okay, I'm doing something about it. Why is this not working? I'm so frustrated. to then, okay, well, maybe I need to focus on the food part, the diet part. So then I focus on the diet part, but then I still need a little help. I needed to actually track it to get to the real numbers and to really stick with it. So for me, I think a lot of it was just realizing like those numbers are real. The science is real. You really do have to be in a deficit if you want to lose weight. It just is what it is. And so what can you do and what can you set up that allows you to realistically follow it? Not be obsessive about it, because I think we don't want disordered eating, right? You want to be able to have a good relationship with food. And then how can you also combine all of those things and stick to it ultimately, right? Like being able to adhere to the diet is more important than anything, because if it's not something that you can sustainably do, then you're going to fail, and you'll fail immediately. And so the way I look at what I've been doing is that, yes, the deficit is a temporary thing, but the diet is not. What I'm eating is foods I already like. It's already foods I like to cook. I'm just making sure that I'm not eating too much of those things. And honestly, it's worked. So as you've seen in this video, you've seen the progress of where I'm at. I'm hoping that by June, or like the end of June, I can reach my goal weight of 185 pounds. That is my goal. What I noticed was that I wouldn't lose as much weight if I wasn't reaching my protein goal, because the protein goal is necessary for me to gain that muscle. And then the more muscle that I'm holding, the more calories I'm going to burn just by doing nothing. I'm trying to walk as much as I can on days that it's good. And luckily the last month has given me several days of like 50 degrees or something like that, and the sun being out, which for Chicago is like, you'll take it this time of year. The combination of all of those with then making sure that my food and my diet is in a deficit has been huge. And I've noticed a massive amount of progress from December, when I started really like doing the correct method for me of what worked for me. So this is going to be something that I will update you guys. Maybe I'll do an update before June, but for sure I'll do an update in June to let you know whether I reach my goal or not, or how hard it was towards the end, because I'd imagine it's only going to get harder for me to lose weight as I drop below 200. I think that will start to be where like I'm going to have to work a little bit harder on the deficit to get to where I want to be. I want to have built enough of the fundamentals of how I make my meals, how much I eat in my meals, and how much I exercise, and just kind of have like a mental note where it's like I have a ballpark number so that I can hit those maintenance calories. When you're losing weight, you have to be a little more disciplined, because if you're not, you're going to lose it way slower, because you're going to not realize how many little things add up that put you back into no longer being in a deficit. Moving forward, like obviously I got to just keep going hard on this deficit for a little bit longer. And then once I get to where I want to be, then maintenance mode, no more tracking mode, and just continue to live the lifestyle. And I think I'll be very excited to see where I'm at. And hopefully I can get back to that physique that I had before, or at least like decently close to that physique that I had before when I was in my young 20s compared to, me going to be 29 this year. Yeah, super exciting. Really happy with the progress. It's not been a linear journey for me. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of things, but hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes and skip right to the effective method that's worked for me. But I will say that everybody's body's different, and obsessing over it is definitely not the right move. So make sure that if you do decide to go on a weight loss journey, you got to do it healthily. You got to be understanding. You got to know that it takes time. Be kind to yourself. This is not an easy thing to do when you maybe have been in a bad habit for a while, like I was. So have grace with yourself, give yourself some patience and love, and give yourself the time you need to take it. And it might take a little bit longer than you would want it to be. But when you start seeing the progress, which takes a little bit of time when you have the right methodology, just stick with it, because it starts to feel good where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing it now. Like you start seeing the progress, and it really becomes worth it. And it's not always going to be in the first month that you're going to feel that way. So stick to it. Thanks for watching so much. Please like, subscribe, all that. Watch my last video, and I will see you in the next one.